Hello, North Haven, and welcome to this edition of Sports Talk. I'm Jeremy Farina here with Holden Pirelli and Justin Paolillo. And today we're going to start the show off with a little bit of some reactions from the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Obviously, the 4 games being the Panthers, Seahawks, the Colts, New England, the Packers.
Hey guys, I thought I'd be on the show tonight. How does that sound?
This is our producer here, Nick.
Hi.
He's been working with us for a while, and today is his last show, so he thought he could come on for a little bit. So Nick, what are your overall reactions to the NFL divisional round?
I was kind of surprised actually. This
with the Colts Broncos game, that really surprised you?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. The thing with the Broncos is, my dad drove a Bronco when I was growing up, so I had a lot of faith in Broncos growing up. But then that faith was tested for a while. But last night's game, I didn't expect that.
Well, what do you think about Andrew Luck's performance for the Colts?
So I watched it last night. I never watch stuff as they come out. I don't have a TV. I have to watch it online later.
I see. But what did you think about Andrew Luck for the Colts at the quarterback position?
See, the thing about Andrew Luck, he's interesting as a quarterback. He really is. If before he, was put in the quarterback position, I don't know. I didn't think he'd be able to pull it together for that team. That's not a thing that I would have pictured him doing, but I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised with him.
Is he a good replacement for Peyton Manning in Indianapolis? Or
I don't know if anyone can truly replace Peyton Manning. Let's be honest here. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But, insofar as anyone ever could, I don't know. I feel like he hasn't completely dropped the ball. No pun intended.
Do you believe that Peyton Manning's injury had an effect on this game? Obviously, with a torn right quad, that's pretty serious.
That is pretty serious, a torn right quad. How could it not affect the game,
Touche.
Yeah.
What about the Seahawks and Panthers? Obviously, the Seahawks were heavy favorites going in. Did they play the level you thought they would?
Well, no. To be honest, they didn't.
No? What side of the ball was it? Offensively, defensively?
Well, offensively, I actually thought they were okay. They were about. I don't know if okay is right. They were on par with what I expected. Defensively, I don't know. I just expected more from them. It's not that they didn't do what they needed to do. I don't know.
And then what did you think about the Dez Bryant play? Did you think it was a catch? It wasn't a catch. What did you think?
Oh no, that was clearly a catch. Okay, the way you know this.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
That was clearly a catch. I have to say, because if that had been like, I'm sorry. I'm actually. This kind of peeves me. That
I know, it gets to you, man. It gets to you.
It does. Because he was able to switch hands with it. I'm just saying, if you can do that, I get that they're trying to say, it was a bobble, he didn't quite have it, but it was a clear intentional switching of hands. So that's what I got to say.
Oh, we do have a call?
Absolutely.
We have a call already? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Let's see who it is. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I have a question.
Already?
What is your favorite sport?
Favorite sport? Curling, hands down. Curling.
What about curling makes it your favorite?
It's the brooms, I think, that really attract me to it. And you don't see very many sports on ice that involve something with finesse. Hockey's a much more beat 'em and bruise 'em. Well, I don't know if I call that a sport. That's I guess it is, but it's not competitive the same way.
It's in the Olympics. I guess you got to consider it a sport if it's in the Olympics.
So Nick, we know you're a pretty good freestyler.
Oh goodness!
Can you possibly, without swearing, can you possibly, if Jeremy gives you a word, can you do some? Can you freestyle? Or
I will do what I can. I make no guarantees as to the quality because it will have to go through the television filter.
Okay, so we'll give you the word.
It'll be a bit slower than my usual.
We'll give you the word curling.
Curling.
Give him a beat.
I would.
We don't have any Hans Zimmer in the studio.
Beat would be nice.
All right, Justin.
I don't give beats.
All right.
Curling. You do it to your hair. You do it over here and you do it over there. Curling. It's the best sport. The thing about curling, it's not short. It's long. Curling goes for the long haul. I'm gonna curl up against the wall. I love curling. It's the sport of the future. I love curling. That's all I got. So that's my freestyle sensibilities right there.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
So what are your plans going forward after North Haven TV?
Well, I just got to say, after North Haven TV, I'm going to LA, which is going to be fun. Mainly because I won't be near you guys. I just have to say,
I mean, that's
you
always
guys,
killer.
You are some of the most petty people I've ever
Really?
met.
I'm
I
so
have to say.
demanding on this
You know,
show.
it's the way you guys go at each other here, and you
I
take
walk off
sides.
set and
You know what? No, I'm actually, I'm not happy about this. I'm not gonna lie. This has been a terrible work environment.
Get off the show.
No, get off. I'm walking off the show. Okay, you're all terrible people to work with. I'm going to my trailer.
So should we go back to our usual programming?
Anyways, we'll get back to business here with reactions to the divisional
Very quickly,
round.
I just want to thank Nick. I mean, he's been a great director. He's helped out our show a lot. He's here every week. Rain or shine. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better director. He does a great job with the cameras. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, from all of us, Jeremy, Justin, and I'm Nick. Thank you so much for all that you do for us. I mean, we came in and we really didn't know what it meant to make good television, and you did that for us. So, yeah, thank you, Nick.
Absolutely. Can't thank you enough for what you've done for us and put us on our way here. But anyways, let's get back to the topic on hand. The divisional round, obviously some controversy going on. We touched on it a little bit with Nick here, kind of joking around about the Des Bryant catch. Overall, did you guys think it was a catch or not a catch? Justin, we'll start with you.
for the Des Bryant catch, based on the rules, I don't think it was a catch. However, I do want to see this rule changed. I want it to be where, like, I don't even know if you could even give words to this. It's just like that play like that is a catch, and that was compared to the Calvin Johnson catch. I think that was a couple years ago against the Bears where it wasn't counted a touchdown. I mean, who's to say, even if Des Bryant does catch that and say they're at the 3-yard line, who's to say Romo doesn't fumble or DeMarco Murray doesn't fumble or maybe he throws a pick? I mean, or even if they score quickly, what if Rodgers comes down the field, he's at home, what if he scores? So it's not to say that it was the game decision, but I mean, it clearly was a big part of the game, and maybe the Cowboys win. But personally, if put rules aside, I wanted that to be a catch. But if you're gonna have to follow the rules, it's not gonna be a catch. But I think the rule needs to be changed going forward because people were obviously upset about it. I mean, Dallas is America's team, so it is going to gain some popularity. I'm sure if this was the Rams, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But overall, I want the rule to change, but I think it wasn't a catch.
Yeah, I definitely think it was not a catch, actually. I don't think Des Bryant's catch was a catch. If you watch that catch over and over again, yes, he secures the ball with two hands as he's coming to the ground, but as he's falling to the ground, he was actually reaching for the goal line, but then he slammed the ball into the turf and it bobbled loose. And even though he kind of turned around, came up with it in the end, anytime you see a player fall into the ground with the ball to make first contact with the ground and it bobbles loose, I mean, that's no catch. Technically, you could argue that's possibly a fumble, and I definitely think this was karma coming back to the Cowboys to haunt them after that pass interference call was picked up in the Lions game. I mean, it was definitely karma. And I agree with you, Justin. I think if it was the Rams, the Cardinals, anyone else, it would have been a controversy, but not to the level it was with the Cowboys. And it was a great game. I definitely think if Des Bryant made that catch, they would have probably scored on the next play, and momentum would have turned on a dime, and the Cowboys could have probably beaten the Cowboys in that game. Des Bryant would have gone to the end zone, throw up the X, and next thing you know, momentum is shifted in the Cowboys' favor. But karma came in to stop that.
Overall, I do agree with the rest of our panelists here. I don't think it was a catch. Obviously, the ball's coming loose as it hit the turf. I wouldn't say it was a fumble. I think I would stay on the side that's just an incomplete pass as the way it was obviously overturned on the field. I don't know if it's the fact that it was the Cowboys, but the fact that maybe it was Des Bryant who made this catch. Obviously, the animated guy he is. I mean, being that Dallas is America's team, that's obviously going to bring a bigger impact on it and really blow the story up overall. But I think with Des Bryant being the guy to make that catch, with how emotional he's been, crying on the sidelines, all these instances have occurred beforehand, and then for this to happen to him of all people, I think that really is what really elevated it more to what it was. Overall, I don't know if this really would have changed the game much. I think this game was really going to come down to who had the ball last. It seemed like Aaron Rodgers, despite his injury, was moving the ball pretty well downfield. I think that even if Dallas is able to score, I think Green Bay still would be able to put up points regardless of it's Eddie Lacy running the ball or Aaron Rodgers being able to do it on one leg, basically. But overall, I think I think the biggest mistake here is him reaching for the end zone. You got to think if you have such a dominant offensive line and a running back with DeMarco Murray that you're going to be able to get the ball in the end zone with 4 downs when you're sitting on the 2nd or 3rd yard line. So I think the biggest mistake is him trying to put that extra effort into to go for it. I mean, maybe if it's a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down, you maybe go for that extra effort. But with it being a 4th down, I think being the experienced receiver he has to know that you have to secure the catch and be sure that you have it before you're reaching for extra efforts like he was. But moving on, one of the other games, the upset, Indianapolis over Denver. Obviously, Denver being the home team was favorited. Peyton Manning obviously didn't look right. It was revealed afterwards that he had a torn right quadricep that he was playing with through the last, I believe, was 4 games of the season. Obviously, this had an effect on the game. But what effect do you guys think this has for maybe the next year? Do you think Manning will maybe come back? Do you think he'll be the same if he does? Holden, we'll start with you.
Well, I definitely think Peyton Manning will return to the NFL for one more season. Whether it's with the Broncos, that's up in the air right now because Wes Welker, Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas are 3 key players for that Denver Broncos team, basically the entire offense, and all 3 of those guys are going to be unrestricted free agents. And I don't think you're going to be able to sign all 3 for next season.
Probably going to lose at least one of them.
They're going to lose at least one of them, and my money's on either of the Thomases. And the fact that their head coach, John Fox, mutually parted ways with the Denver Broncos recently is a sign that the organization is changing. John Elway wants to take a more aggressive approach and a different approach than that of John Fox's. And who's to say Peyton Manning was on either the coach's side or Elway's side? I don't know, but he's been beat up all season. I definitely think he'll return next season. He's going on 39 years of age, and then he'll retire in his 39 going on 40 years of age season. I definitely think he'll come back next season because that team is still legitimate. But if he goes somewhere else, I wouldn't be shocked because it really depends on how free agency shakes out for the Denver Broncos this year. But that Colts game, I mean, let's talk about Andrew Luck and his ascension in the playoffs over the past couple seasons. His first trip in the playoffs, he loses in the first round to the Baltimore Ravens. The following year, he beats the Chiefs, but then loses to the Patriots. And this year, he beat the Bengals, then the Broncos, and now he's in the AFC title game. I've been impressed with this quarterback's maturity, given that he's only 25 years old. The poise with which he plays in the playoffs is really impressive. I don't have any words. I'm just very impressed with his performance, and I definitely think that this game was more about Andrew Luck finally sort of exercising his playoff demons rather than the Broncos coming out a little bit shaky because they did have a week off, and I picked them to win this game. I thought they would win with a week worth of rest, but Peyton Manning is the engine that makes this car go for the Denver Broncos, and obviously he wasn't healthy.
I'm going to start off talking about the game. I mean, you could make the argument that the only reason the Broncos lost was due to Peyton Manning's injury, but I think this is more on the part of how good the Colts are. I mean, just like Holden, I picked the Broncos to win this game, not because I thought the Colts were bad, it's just because I thought the Broncos were that much better. But I mean, you could credit the Broncos' struggles to his injury, but nevertheless, it was a one-sided game for the most part. And I mean, the Colts did deserve it. I mean, they have a really good defense. A pretty good running game. I mean, they have a underrated running back there, and with Luck leading the way. I mean, we were talking about right before the show not right before the show with Nick here. If Luck was a good replacement for Manning, and personally, I think if you're going to get anybody out of the draft in the last 10 years to replace Manning, I'm going to go with Andrew Luck. So I think that was a very good move by them, and I think that'll just carry going into the next game against New England. But as far as Peyton Manning goes into next year, I definitely think he's going to come back. But a quad injury like that, especially if it's been nagging him all season, that could show some signs of aging, which isn't good for a quarterback because maybe one big hit by a defensive lineman, you're out possibly for the year. So I think Peyton Manning's going to come back. Hopefully he can stay healthy and make one final run at the Super Bowl. I can't see him playing maybe past this year, maybe the year after that. But I think Peyton Manning's going to come back strong. As Holden mentioned, I mean, if they lose some of those key receivers, the team could struggle. But I think if they can maintain, one or two of those guys, they still got Manning there. They got defenses improving. So I think this team's moving in the right direction, and I think they're going to be good next year as long as Manning can stay healthy.
Overall, I feel like the Colts obviously did play a good game. They were able to beat the Broncos, but I think that this is more of the Broncos underperforming. Obviously, not Peyton Manning's fault of his own. He's playing on a torn right quad. I think if he's right, I don't think the Colts win this game. I think the Broncos would win maybe 35-28, something like that. Just because the lack of really velocity he had on the ball, it seemed like everything was hanging out there, and you could tell his plant foot wasn't right. Whenever he was going to throw, it was just hanging up there. I mean, the Colts did play a good game, but I think that the Broncos definitely need to play better. I mean, Aqib Talib played a horrible game. He had 2 or 3 big penalties on him and got beat a lot. It seemed like every time they showed a replay, he was holding someone or there was pass interference of some sort. I think he really underperformed. And overall, I think that hurt their Broncos defense because he was supposed to shut down T.Y. Hilton, and he really wasn't able to, which really had an impact on the game. But the Colts definitely are a good team. I think that they do have a fighting chance against the Patriots going in. The only thing that worries me is the injuries to both their starting cornerbacks, in Vontae Davis and Greg Toller. But overall, I think that if Peyton Manning is right and the Broncos are right in general, I think that they're definitely able to win this game against the Colts. So I'm still giving the Colts credit for a win, but I think that the Broncos definitely underperformed. Moving on, obviously the game that a lot of people weren't really looking forward to, the Seahawks and the Panthers. A lot of people didn't feel the Panthers deserved to be here and that the Seahawks were going to walk all over them. Overall, did you guys get that feel from the game, or did you think it was rather even? Justin, we'll start with you.
I did feel like, I mean, you got if you're in the playoffs, it's because you won your division. If you're in a bad division like that, so I mean, they did, I guess you could say, deserve to be in. Obviously, teams had better records. Especially, I don't like how the Panthers get a home game, but the Cardinals have a much better record. So I just don't like how that worked out. But I mean, you could say the Panthers do deserve to be there. And personally, I was not impressed by the Seahawks. I mean, I feel like if this game was in Carolina, I think the Seahawks lose this game. It was not. They should be dominating a team like the Panthers at this point. And I mean, Cam Newton did play well. You have to give him credit. But moving forward, I think the Seahawks need to rethink what they're doing here, because you need to blow out a team like the Carolina Panthers in this bad of a season for them. And I wasn't impressed with the Seahawks, but I knew they were going to win somehow just because they're at home. The defense is always going to be there for them. Cam Chancellor's stepping up big time. And if he keeps playing like the way he does, I mean, if they win the Super Bowl, I could see him winning the MVP or the most valuable player of the Super Bowl if he continues to play like this. I mean, but if the Seahawks played like they did last week, I don't think they have a chance against the Packers this week. But as far as the Panthers go, I think they deserve to be there. But it clearly did show that division is pretty bad. The fact that they went up to a struggling Seahawks team and still got beat. So I think it was an overall pretty bad game to watch, as Jeremy mentioned. Nobody really wanted to watch it, but I was impressed by Cam Newton's play, but the Seahawks showed they were the better team.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, last week's show I predicted the Seahawks to win like you did, Justin, and I was pretty happy with their performance and pretty impressed with how they've come on the last few weeks. I mean, they started out the season with a big win against Green Bay and then kind of hit a rough patch in the middle of the season, but the last few weeks they've really turned it up, really dialed it in, and showed why they won the Super Bowl last year against the Denver Broncos. And I've been really impressed so far. Marshawn Lynch is playing out of his mind. The defense has come together to be the Legion of Boom once again. Richard Sherman's playing at like an all-pro. Cam Chancellor is the key to this defense, though. He played out of his mind last game against Carolina. He had one blocked field goal, and he almost had another one, too. He jumped over the offensive line twice. I mean, he's just such an athletic freak. And Marshawn Lynch went off in that game, and the rest of that defense really played well. Russell Wilson did enough to win the game, but he didn't make any mistakes. And Carolina obviously showed their inexperience in winning playoff games on the road. That's expected. They haven't been in the postseason. They've only been in the postseason going on 2 years now, and with only one victory, so I wasn't too shocked there with Carolina's performance. But Cam Newton did actually play a pretty good game. He made some key throws and showed the poise of a number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position. But kudos to the Seahawks for how they've come on and definitely have the signs to repeat as Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, it's almost crazy to think a lot of people halfway through the year saying Seattle might not even get in. questioning if this team's legitimate like they were last season. And it seems like once that started happening, they started getting on a roll, started winning a lot of games, and ultimately end up getting the 1 seed in the NFC. So in order to get the Super Bowl, you got to go through Seattle some way. So, and obviously it's hard to beat them there. But overall, I did think Seattle played well. Obviously, the defense lived up to their expectations, despite the fact that I feel Cam Newton was really on point like he had to be in order to have the Panthers in this game. I really don't feel he made a mistake until he threw that pick six to Chancellor. Overall, I think he was hitting a lot of throws he had to. He had 2 touchdown passes in it. Obviously, one of the interceptions was Richard Sherman, but it worked like a punt. It was like 50 or 60 yards thrown downfield. So I didn't really consider that to be a big mistake that he made. It was on a 3rd down already. So overall, I thought that he played a fantastic game and that he had Carolina in a position to win. If they were able to score instead of the pick six, it would have been a 1-possession game. So it's hard to argue that the Panthers didn't go in and really almost prove that they were here to stay. Overall, a lot of people do question the NFL playoff picture where if you win the division, you get in. Obviously, there's only 2 times where it's been a below 500 team that got in, and both of these times the below 500 team was able to win the playoff game, with the Seahawks beating the Saints a couple years back, and then obviously the Panthers beating the Cardinals this year with Ryan Lindley, quarterback for them. But overall, I was very impressed with Carolina, but Seattle obviously proving that they're the NFC favorite to reach the Super Bowl. I think that it's going to be really hard for Green Bay to go in and beat them just because of the inability of Rodgers to move. But we'll get to that later on the show. Obviously, the last game we have to talk about is the Ravens-Patriots game, arguably the best game of the divisional round. Came down to a Hail Mary at the end. Joe Flacco threw it up, but obviously Patriots were able to knock it down and move on to the Conference Championship for the 4th year in a row. Overall, I thought this was a very good game. I thought Joe Flacco played really well. He made, obviously, the big mistake down the end of the game where he had that interception. But it seemed like he outplayed Tom Brady for the majority of the game. And then Tom Brady obviously does what he does in the playoffs, was able to pick it up in the end and lead the Patriots to his victory. But I do have some worries about that Patriots defense going up against Andrew Luck. I mean, Joe Flacco, obviously a great quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, got the money he deserved. And I worry that Andrew Luck will have even more success on that Patriots defense, despite the fact of their really underrated secondary with Revis and an ex-Seahawk and Browner. And obviously they have a lot of skill there. But I think that Andrew Luck could definitely have success against them. And maybe if they can get the running game going a little bit with Boom Herron, they could have some success there. But overall, I think that the Patriots played a very good game. Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata all had really good games. They were able to really disrupt Brady for the majority of the game until he started having the big drives he did. But overall, I think that was probably the best game of these all. And if either team moved on, I would have looked forward to seeing them play the Colts in the conference championship. What do you guys have to say? I'll start with Holden.
Yeah, I definitely was impressed up until that interception with Joe Flacco, who I think is the most overpaid quarterback in the NFL.
He totally proved to you he wasn't.
But let me explain. He's Joe Flacco in the regular season. That team for the past 5 years has relied upon the defense and the run game to win games, and Joe Flacco just does enough to win. But in the postseason, this guy is like Jekyll and Hyde. He undergoes a complete makeover, and he becomes like Tom Brady in the postseason, where he's unstoppable. But obviously, in Saturday's game, he got stopped, and he threw that game-sealing interception against the Patriots. Kudos to Tom Brady, though. He played out of his mind against the Ravens. I predicted the Ravens to win because I thought Joe Flacco would outplay Tom Brady, because Joe Flacco is actually Tom Brady in the postseason, not the regular season, but the postseason. But Tom Brady did enough to win this game. I mean, I'll give you guys a little backstory. Before the game came on, I saw a Vine of Tom Brady before the game. It was a 5-second Vine, and it's him just running into the stadium with the second-string quarterback, and he's screaming to the crowd, "Let's go! Come on!" And there was an expletive. I won't say it on air, though. But he looked like he was hopped up on some special sauce. I don't know what he took before the game, but he looked pumped and ready to go. And whenever I see Tom Brady like that, similar to a couple games ago where he head-putted Gronkowski in the head after he scored a touchdown, this guy, when he's all pumped up and screaming all rah-rah, no one can stop Tom Brady. He is a true force of competitive nature. And the Ravens defense did play a solid game, but Tom Brady does what he always does. Starts out pretty slow, then he goes in at halftime, talks with Belichick, makes some adjustments, and then he goes right back in and he torches the defense, and that's what he did against the Ravens.
Very rarely will I defend Joe Flacco. But to say he's the most overpaid quarterback in the league, when you have a guy in Jay Cutler who isn't even starting in the last couple of the games for his team because he's so ineffective, is ridiculous. Even if this guy isn't the greatest regular season
right,
quarterback.
Jay Cutler, I forgot about him. He's like a step above. Joe Flacco's right there.
I wouldn't even say he's right there.
If Joe Flacco had a contract...
all the money he has is earned because he won a Super Bowl.
Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were in that game too.
Okay. But did he do enough for that offense to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, he did, but does he do enough in the regular season so they can have a number one seed in the playoffs?
It doesn't matter if they have a number one seed because he has the ability to go on the road. He's the only quarterback. He's one of the only quarterbacks that goes into New England and wins.
I think if Joe Flacco plays and puts up numbers similar to Tom Brady even, and Tom Brady didn't have great numbers this year, and they have home field advantage, I think they win that game against the Patriots. But Joe Flacco doesn't do enough offensively. And let me throw this out. Joe Flacco, in his career, since the institution of the QBR stat 3 years ago, has had the 2 worst games in NFL history.
All right, so you're going to say a single game.
2 games.
You can't judge two single games.
And guess what?
That'd be like if I was like, yeah, John Carlos Stanton's a great player, but he struck out 5 times.
2 games, and they were both in the regular season. Listen to what I'm saying, and I'm going to say it again. I don't know how many times you're going to listen to me. I said Joe Flacco is money in the postseason. In the regular season,
that's why he's worth the money he's getting.
He's not worth $20 million. He's not worth more than Tom Brady and Peyton Manning.
He is one of the only quarterbacks that can consistently go into New England and contend with them. He should have been to 2 consecutive
They went 8-8
Super
last year. They went 8-8 last year, and they didn't make the playoffs.
He should have been to because Ray Rice was horrible last year. Ray
it doesn't
Rice
matter.
was
If you said Joe Flacco's the man, you should do that for him, right?
Flacco, by no means am I saying Joe Flacco is
if
a
Joe
top
Flacco could win a Super Bowl, he can make the playoffs,
I'm saying
right?
Joe Flacco is worth the money he is because the quarterback depth in the National Football League is so slim.
This is why I'm moving and fighting like this.
It's so slim. You think about the quarterbacks that deserve any money. You think about all the teams that have no quarterback. But you can the Jets, the Titans, the Buccaneers. They would all gladly pay Joe Flacco $20 million to come be okay in the regular season.
But I'm saying,
and then win postseason.
Here's what
games.
I'm saying to you. When you pay a guy $20 million, there's an expectation that you put up numbers a la Tom Brady, even a Matt Ryan.
Numbers don't matter. Wins matter.
Wins matters. And they didn't make the playoffs last year. They went 8-8.
They didn't make the playoffs because Ray Rice was horrendous.
Peyton Manning made the playoffs. He doesn't have a run game.
And yes, he does. No, Sean Moreno was fantastic last year
Green
for Denver.
Bay made it.
And C.J. Anderson was
Detroit
a fantastic running back this year. Green Bay has Eddie Lacy. Every good team has a running game of some sort. Justin Forsett had a good year. Joe Flacco's in the playoffs. He goes into Pittsburgh, beats Pittsburgh,
but what I'm saying
goes into England, plays well enough, and makes one mistake.
Peyton Manning has made the playoffs countless times. Aaron Rodgers has made the playoffs countless times. Both guys did it without a run game because they were the team's offense. Joe Flacco does not pick up his end of the bargain on the offensive side of the ball, and that's why I think he's one of the most overpaid. Not the overpaid, one of the most overpaid. You could argue before Jay Cutler got his deal, he was the most overpaid guy. Yes, he won a Super Bowl, but you know who else won a Super Bowl? Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Trent Dilfer is a completely different scenario than Joe Flacco is. Joe Flacco he doesn't play horrible football in the regular season. He does enough to win. There were plenty of games this season where he threw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions.
This year. I'm not saying he's one of the most overpaid this year. I'm saying before Jay Cutler got his deal last year, they didn't make the playoffs. And because you know why? It was because the Ravens' defense and the Ravens' run game are the keys to winning games. Joe Flacco can't do enough on his own to win a game, and that's why.
But you should never have to rely solely on your quarterback to win you a football game. And there's very few teams that have the ability. There's probably 3 in the league.
Tell that to Peyton Manning. Tell that to Aaron Rodgers. Tell that to Tom Brady.
That's it. That's the only 3 quarterbacks that can solely win a game. Drew Brees can't solely win a game, and he proved that this season with New Orleans not being able to make the playoffs.
What about last season when they went 11-5 and didn't have a run game?
They have plenty of running backs there. Mark Ingram gets involved. Pierre Thomas was able to get involved.
Pierre Thomas was hurt for most of last season. Mark Ingram was a scrub last season. Darren Sproles was a pass catcher out of the backfield. They had no one to hand the ball off to.
But New Orleans is a different type of offense. New Orleans has countless weapons that Drew Brees has at his disposal. And then you look at what Joe Flacco has last season. Torrey Smith. Name the second wide receiver on that team.
Torrey Smith, not Julio Jones, Jacoby Jones. Dennis Pitta,
How many
tight
catches
end.
did Jacoby Jones have?
Jacoby Jones scored 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
In this season.
Well,
How many
obviously he
catches
played
did-
behind Steve Smith, Torrey Smith. He was the third option. Actually, the
so
fifth
you're
option
telling me
behind
that
Daniel.
a third option is completely irrelevant in Joe Flacco's offense?
I would
How
say
can
yes.
you say that that's a
He
has
wasn't even a
legitimate
third option.
offense?
He was a fifth option.
Who else are their options?
Look,
Steve Smith,
Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, Owen Daniels, Justin Forsett, okay?
Justin
Dennis
Forssett's a
Pitta.
running back.
And they had a rookie come through for them this year. You can't. Jacoby Jones is a good receiver.
I'm
okay?
saying this season, Joe Flacco played well enough and earned the money he got because the Ravens were in the postseason. They won a postseason game, and they contended with the Patriots going into Foxborough.
All right, and these last points,
almost
because
played
we
well
seem to get in
enough.
an argument every show. You always want to pick a beef with me. But, all right, Justin Forsett, 1,200 yards. Ravens defense, top 10 in the league this year. John Harbaugh, one of the best coaches in the NFL. Joe Flacco playing like a mediocre quarterback in the regular season.
New England, every year they're contending for a Super Bowl.
Well, I don't think Joe Flacco gets
Yeah,
his
they
money
have a
if they
top
don't
10
win.
defense and Tom Brady. That's all you need.
And Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick runs the
Are you
defense.
telling
Tom
me
Brady
that- are you
runs the
trying to
offense.
say Bill Belichick is probably the best best coach in the NFL.
John
right
Harbaugh's
now.
up there too. He has more playoff wins than Vince Lombardi.
Yeah.
How can you say this guy
I'm
is a
not
scrub?
saying John Harbaugh's a scrub. I'm saying he's a great coach. But if you're trying to tell me that he gets carried by his defense and his running game, every year the Patriots are in the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl. They have a good running game, a good defense, and probably one of the greatest coaches of all time in Bill Belichick.
Well, they didn't have a good running game when they made it to the Super Bowl in 2012.
Okay, so that's one aspect of the
And
game.
they didn't have a good running game when they made it to the Super Bowl in 2007. Like I'm saying to you, in today's NFL, we have made a transition to a passing game. It is all about throwing the ball downfield, and you need a franchise quarterback. The Patriots have Tom Brady.
Okay.
The
and
Saints
there's-
have Drew Brees.
They're-
The
you're-
Broncos and the Colts have Peyton
You're
Manning.
talking about
now they have Andrew
So
Luck.
there's only 4 franchise quarterbacks. Is what
I
you're saying
think
in
Joe
this league.
Flacco is a franchise quarterback.
So
Listen
then
to-
he deserves the money he's getting.
He doesn't deserve the money he's getting because he's getting paid more than Tom Brady, and I think Tom Brady's a better quarterback.
That's because Tom Brady's cutting back on his money because he's already earned the money he wants, and he wants to contend for Super Bowls.
He's making more money than Aaron Rodgers. Does Aaron Rodgers deserve more money? I think so.
Okay. I'm still saying I'm not comparing him to what other quarterbacks that are maybe better than him are. I'm saying if he's able to get to the playoffs, win a Super Bowl in the last couple of years, and he's always contending there, he could have been in the Super Bowl the year before he won it if Billy Cundiff doesn't miss a 38-yard field goal.
Like I said, that was before he got his contract. I'm saying once the numbers came out and it was 6 years, $120 million with almost half of it guaranteed, that's crazy. That's Jay Cutler money. That's bogus money. If he got like a 5-year or even a 6-year, like $100 million, similar to Eli's, because Eli and Joe Flacco are similar quarterbacks. They do enough to win the regular season, but when it's postseason time, they turn into money quarterbacks. If they got a contract like that, I'd be fine with it. But in today's NFL, when you hand out $20 million, there's an expectation that this guy is going to win games by putting up numbers.
You can make the argument this year that, say, if Joe Flacco wins in New England, which if a few plays go their way, they do.
Yeah, and then
I think they could beat Indianapolis,
Yeah,
and I think they
he's
could win the Super Bowl
potentially
because
in
I
the
think
Super
they could beat the Packers. And I think the reason he did get his money is because of that Super Bowl win. If they get knocked out in the Super Bowl, he doesn't get nearly that much money.
because the Ravens didn't want to give him a contract extension or a new contract before the season. So Joe Flacco said, okay, all right, we make the postseason, I'll win the Super Bowl. And they were handcuffed. The Ravens had no choice but to give him that type of
And
money.
they're handcuffed because there's no other quarterbacks in this league that are successful
Yeah, they couldn't
that
sign
are
anybody
able
else.
to win the Super Bowl. It's not like you get rid of Joe Flacco and you can go draft the next Joe
Well,
Flacco.
I know they had no choice. That's what I'm saying. He won the Super Bowl. What can you ask for more than that?
What
so
I'm
you
saying
have to resign
What
him.
I'm saying is I'm not
Well, like I
saying
said,
that the
I think
Ravens
he's-
made a good or bad decision. You have to give him that much money because of the lack of talent at the quarterback position in the
I think.
NFL.
Look. I'm not disagreeing with you that he's a top 10 quarterback. What I'm saying is that he deserves to be paid like a number 6, number 5 guy. He does not deserve to get money that you would typically associate with the guy who's number 1 or number 2 in his position. Okay, and that's the only problem I have. And look, I want to see Joe Flacco do what Peyton Manning did, do what Tom Brady did, which is win playoff games when you don't have a running game and you don't have a lot of weapons around you.
Win a lot of Peyton Manning has a losing record in the postseason.
Yeah, but he's won games, and he's won games by bunches, and he's won games in the postseason without a running game. I want to see Joe Flacco put up numbers that you've never seen before.
He had Edward James when he was with Indianapolis, and when he came to Denver, he had Noshawn Moreno running the ball well, and then he had C.J. Anderson.
Noshawn Moreno was a product of Peyton Manning more than Noshawn Moreno was.
But it's still a running game, regardless. Well, then you could say DeMarco Murray's a product of Tony Romo.
No, because that offensive line is what makes the team go, and DeMarco Murray helped set up Tony Romo's success more than Tony Romo and vice versa. Whereas Peyton Manning, you're so prepared when you prepare against Peyton Manning, you're so prepared and studying about the passing game that you neglect preparing for the running game. And when you're playing against Peyton Manning, you're dropping back 8 to 7 guys in coverage, which leaves maybe 4 or 5 guys in the box. So Peyton Manning, that's easy for him. He calls an audible, he checks to a running play, and next thing you know, Noshawn Moreno has a 5 or 6 yard carry. Noshawn Moreno benefited from Peyton Manning because Peyton Manning is a beast at the quarterback position.
But Noshawn Moreno did go to Miami, and he had a couple good games before he did get injured. So I wouldn't say he's a pro. I would say, yes, having Peyton Manning did benefit him.
He had one good game, then he dislocated his elbow, and then he tore his knee. And one good game, Jeremy, you said it earlier, one game doesn't matter. Okay, you got to have a consistent record.
Well, you can't compare his games to any other time because he didn't play the whole season.
Well, I think if you're debating about money, I think a lot of times in sports, players get paid based on what they did and not what they're doing. So that's why I said, if Joe Flacco wins the Super Bowl, you have to repay him back.
Exactly. I mean,
Larry Sanders, for example,
Flacco's contract was simply pay him for what he did and not what he's going to do down the road.
Well, they didn't know. I mean, this year, like I said, easily they win in New England, they could make another Super Bowl run. Just because of what you got there.
But is any Ravens player going to complain, or is any Ravens fan going to complain that he's getting that money after he wins the Super Bowl? If you're able to win the big one, that's all anyone cares about. All the Broncos fans right now aren't happy because they weren't able to win the big one. And if you said, all right, if we go and give Tom Brady $20 million or another quarterback $25 million or whatever it is, and that's considered overpaying for them, if it brings them a ring, that brought him a ring. They did the ultimate goal of what any franchise in the NFL,
I know,
NBA,
and it's a winning game. It is a win now league, and I totally agree with you, Jeremy. But when you pay a guy that type of money, last year all over ESPN they were all talking about blow it up, get rid of Joe Flacco. They didn't make the playoffs. Look, when you have that type of guy, you got to win, and Joe Flacco checks that box, no problem. But he's got to put up a little better numbers because there are expectations that he needs to carry that offense. And when you get paid $20 million, yes, go win, but do a little more on the offensive end so your team doesn't have to pray every game that your kicker makes a field goal.
Well, that's why the kicker's getting paid the money he's getting paid. I just think that as long as you're winning football games and as long as you're consistently making the postseason and consistently making decent runs in the postseason and potentially in the position to win a Super Bowl every season, you're doing what you're paid to do.
Technically, the Ravens every year can make a Super Bowl
Every year, the Ravens are always that team that everyone's like, oh, maybe they're able to make a run. Maybe they're able to sneak in or whatever it is. And if you're able to consistently do that, and ultimately, they won a championship doing that.
I totally agree with you. They're always a playoff team, but you never say they're a playoff team because they got Joe Flacco. No, you're saying they're a playoff team because they got a defense, a run game, and they have a decent quarterback. But you never say, when I think of Green Bay, they're a playoff team. You know why? Because they got Aaron Rodgers. The Denver Broncos are a playoff team. You know why? They got Peyton Manning. And the Patriots are a playoff team. You know why? They got Tom Brady. The Saints are a playoff team. You know why? They got Drew Brees. You never say the Ravens and then go straight to Joe Flacco as your number one reason they're going to win a playoff game.
On the Broncos, for example, I think he has a 10-11 win season just because of the weapons.
Yeah, that Denver team, it's got it's really good on defense. And if you're a guy like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, talent's going to come to you. People are going to want to play alongside you because you're at that level where people believe that you could take them to a Super Bowl. I mean, does Baltimore have the same type of negotiation process that a team like a Denver or New England has? It's not easy for them to bring in guys from the win around. I think that if Joe Flacco has similar weapons to what Peyton Manning has in Denver, maybe he's able to put up those numbers.
But he doesn't have those weapons because guys look at him and go, Joe Flacco, he's worth $20 million.
But Steve Smith found something intriguing about him.
Steve Smith signed with that team because you know why? He looked on that schedule and he said, What's that team? Oh, Carolina.
That's not the only reason.
Carolina's
Steve
on that
Smith signed
schedule.
with them.
Oh man, I'm going to
There's
sign
no
with them.
way that's the only reason.
And
Steve
he also
Smith's gonna
signed with them
16
because you know
other
what?
teams then.
He got cut, and the Ravens always do a great job of bringing in guys that you were like, oh, who is this guy? Well, he
Because
had a
they
little
don't
trouble.
have the same
Steve Smith had some
negotiation
off-the-field
rights that the other
trouble.
teams
There
have.
were rumors that it was a problem in the locker room. And the Ravens took a gamble on him because they saw a guy hungry to compete.
Because they're not able to go out and contend with these other teams and bring in the prospects they want to bring in or the players they want to bring in.
And I think that's a lot on Joe Flacco, too, because you just made the Peyton Manning analogy. That he brings in guys because he's a stud at the position. Why doesn't Joe Flacco bring in a guy like that?
Because it's easier for Denver to bring that guy in because they have the win-now mentality, and they're able to do that because they have John Elway talking to all their players saying,
Ozzie
come
Newsome,
here.
John Harbaugh, those are two guys with some reputations in the league.
Right, and I understand what
Baltimore
you're
has a
saying.
great fan base.
Well, I mean, Baltimore, they have some decent pieces over the years. I mean, Elvis Dumerville signed with them 2 years ago.
Terrell Suggs, I mean, they got
Think
some
about all
guys.
the players that left after they won the Super Bowl.
Well, they couldn't afford to keep all those guys because they had to,
Exactly,
they
they're
had to
not
sign
able
Joe
to
Flacco.
afford them.
Because
That's not why
Joe
people
Flacco
don't
was
come
like,
in
give
here.
me my 6-year, $120 million
And did he
deal or
earn
I
that
walk.
6-year, $120
And they were like,
million deal?
oh, crap, who's in this draft? Nobody. Crap. All right, we have to give him that money. But we're going to lose Paul Kruger. We're going to lose Ed Reed. We're going to lose whoever else they lost. Oh, sorry, you got to give him this deal because there's no one in this draft. Ozzie Newsome was probably ripping his hair out, but he's bald anyways. So, you know what? The Ravens were bust. And that's why they missed.
Because of the ability, if you're able to win in the NFL, you're a liability, and you're able to negotiate for what you deserve if you're consistently
Look,
winning.
I think if there was a guy like an Andrew Luck, or not even an Andrew Luck, a guy like with the talent level of an Andy Dalton in that draft, I think the Ravens let Flacco walk and they signed some guys back.
No.
Flacco
you can't
did.
do that.
Flacco.
You can't
Look,
do that because
6 years.
If they let Flacco go, Flacco goes. I don't know. Say he goes to the Jets. If he goes to the Jets, if the Jets win 12 games, make postseason in Baltimore,
They wouldn't win 12 games. Joe Flacco doesn't have those
he has the
types of
same
games.
situation. He's got a great defense in New York, and he's got a good running game.
Running
he's
game,
in the same
who?
situation. Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson had 300 yards rushing this year, and Chris Ivory had 600.
That's over.
That's 900
yards. And then you have Eric Decker, and then they brought in
Eric
Percy
Decker.
Harvin.
Eric Decker. All right, we're going to Eric Decker now.
And then
All
they
right.
have a high draft pick.
All right.
I don't know.
But he had
We're
no
going-
weapons when he was in Baltimore.
Torrey Smith is a stud. Anquan Bolden was there
Torrey
for that
Smith
Super
is a
Bowl
stud.
run.
Torrey Smith is a top 10 receiver in this league. Torrey Smith is a stud.
I think-
you're comparing.
Torrey Smith had 11 yards receiving this year and 11 touchdowns. You're
because
telling me
he's
that's
the
not good?
only one there.
It doesn't matter if you're the
you
only
could
one
have,
there.
If you could have Torrey Smith,
Antonio
or
Brown's the
if
only
you could have-
receiver in Pittsburgh.
Exactly.
And you're
and-
saying he's not a stud?
I'm saying Antonio Brown a stud.
Then why
Antonio
would you
Brown
say
is
Torrey Smith's a
Antonio
stud?
Brown also had the second most yards ever by anyone ever.
Yeah, but Tony Smith, he's by himself. Torrey Smith's by himself. He had over 1,000 yards. And you're willing to say Antonio Brown's a stud, but not Torrey Smith.
Torrey Smith is not a stud because he hasn't had a consistent. Last year, most people didn't even know who this guy was.
I knew who he was.
Yeah, you know, it's because you look into the league. There's a lot of people that they couldn't even tell you the wide receivers on Baltimore.
Because Baltimore's a small market
That's
team.
exactly what I'm saying. That's why why isn't he putting up the numbers? Because he doesn't have the weapons that these guys have.
Baltimore's one of those teams where if they lose their franchise quarterback, they're not. If
they're
there's a big
gonna
free agent
go
in the market,
five-
nobody's going
yeah.
to go to Baltimore.
They're going down for
But-
the next 5 to 10 years because they have to keep this guy, and they're not going to be able to bring in the weapons that
So
the
maybe
teams like
he's
the
not
Broncos
worth
can bring
$20
in.
million, but he definitely
But he's worth enough to keep the franchise afloat.
and he's paid for what he did. Now
Look,
maybe not necessarily.
he's
gonna
worth
do.
enough to keep the franchise afloat, but he's not worth enough for the franchise to not only sign him, but then realize they can't go out and sign anyone else to make the team better around him. And that's the problem. I think Flacco deserved an Eli Manning-esque contract because he got paid too much, and now they're cap-strapped, and they're going out and signing guys like Steve Smith and Darryl Smith, who are 30 years plus, going on the downslide, and they can't go out and dish out the cash to get a guy like Demaryius Thomas or a big-name guy in his late 20s. And that's the problem. Joe Flacco deserved his money, and they had no choice but to give it to him because he won the Super Bowl riding off of Ray Lewis's coattails. But look,
Did Joe Flacco show up in the postseason? Did Joe Flacco
did he
play
show up in the
well
regular
enough?
season?
I don't care about the regular. No one.
The
cares
regular
about
season
the regular
gets you
season.
in the playoffs.
And does he? How many years has Joe Flacco missed the playoffs?
Once.
How many years has he been in the league?
I don't even know.
He's been in 5 or 6 years. 80% of the time,
look,
you're in the postseason
when you think
if Joe
Baltimore,
Flacco's your quarterback.
when you think Baltimore for the last
80% of the time.
When you think Baltimore the last 5 years, what comes to your mind first? Be honest.
I mean, clearly,
Be honest.
clearly the defense with
Thank
Ray.
you. Thank you.
With
That's it.
an all-star
Thank
in
you.
Ray. Are you
Thank
kidding
you.
me? You're telling me that I'm going to think of Joe Flacco overall Hall of Fame, arguably one of the best linebackers.
That's what I'm saying.
In
The
history
defense
of the
won
league.
their games. The defense
Joe
won
Flacco,
the games.
Ray Lewis was also 30 plus. He'd been in the league. He's not the star he was in 01, 2000. Like, he's not the same player.
I know, but that veteran leadership in the locker room alongside with guys like Suggs and Nada, Ed Reed, that team thrived on defense.
Okay.
Defense was the reason they won the Super Bowl. Okay?
Regardless, Joe
Flacco did enough to win.
Exactly.
But to get paid $20 million, you better damn be the reason you win the Super Bowl.
And did he have big games? Did he play well in the Super Bowl? Did he outplay Colin Kaepernick?
Look.
Personally, I think
Look,
Joe
Colin
Flacco did win the Super Bowl.
Colin Kaepernick
Because Ray Lewis was hurt.
was playing against a defense that was beasting in the Baltimore Ravens, okay? And Joe Flacco, he came out
And you're
there.
telling me the 49ers defense wasn't at just about the same
They were
level?
inexperienced. They haven't been at that place before. You had veterans like Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Haloi Nod. They had been in that moment before. The 49ers, they were like babies in that moment. They never been
The
there.
game came down to the last throw. How can you say they're
And
inexperienced?
Colin Kaepernick could have
contending
won.
the whole
But
time?
all right, you want to get down nitty gritty? You want to pick on little details? Last throw of the game, Colin Kaepernick throws a fade route to Michael Crabtree. Michael Crabtree gets smothered
It's
at
not
the line of
popping up on
scrimmage.
the thing.
What?
They're saying we got a call, but it's not popping up.
They had pass interference. Jimmy Smith was all over Crabtree. The ref should have thrown the flag and gotten a first down for the 49ers, but it didn't happen. Okay? So if they had scored on that drive, the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl.
But then the defense gave up that touchdown.
Right, but what I'm saying is, you're saying Joe Flacco's got to win the game for him. He's got to do it. Well, why didn't Joe Flacco put enough damn points to win the game in the first place?
He did. They won the game.
They won the game, but it was the defense who made a goal line stand.
But you're saying that the defense just committed a penalty on that play.
Right, but they still stopped them. That's what I'm saying. The defense shut down Tom Brady. They shut down Peyton Manning.
This is a tough discussion because
Overall, if you're in the NFL,
All right, final
you've
statements.
won
Final
games,
statements on this one.
You are in the postseason 80% of the time you've been in the league, including your rookie season and your second season, which a guy like Peyton Manning wasn't even able to do. If you're consistently in the postseason, you have a ring, and your team is consistently, regardless of what the reason is, if your team is consistently competing for the Super Bowl every year, you deserve the money you make.
All right, look, he deserved over $100 million, but 120, let's not kill your team. You want to still win and be a winner, Joe Flacco? Take a little less like Tom Brady did, so your team could still have a chance to compete. All I'm saying, Jake Peavy 6-0
I mean,
down the
if the
stretch of the
team
regular
offers you
season.
money,
Then
you're
he
gonna
goes
take it.
0-2, or I think it was 0-3 in the playoffs, and they still won the World Series, but Jake Peavy kind of choked, and he got a 2-year, $24 million
He
deal.
also was one of the reasons they got there, seeing that they only made it by a couple
Yeah,
games.
but, he went 0-2, so.
Well, you're the guy that was saying that Aaron Rodgers was the MVP until the last week, and then you finally picked J.J. Watt, a guy
That's
who I've been
because-
picking the whole year.
When you watch the games, you're allowed to change your opinion.
Okay. Moving on, we're going to talk about Justin's going to have his NBA corner segment over here.
NBA corner segment.
He's going to talk to us about who's going to win the West. Justin, what do you have?
Well, I have a lot of stuff. I'll discuss the West later. First thing I wanted to mention was that Atlanta is 9-1 in their last 10 games, looking very strong. Number one in the power rankings this past week. Some people debated that, but I personally agree with it. This team is very good. The Pistons are also 9-1, playing very well since Josh Smith left. Andre Drummond, Monroe, Jennings, Contavious Caldwell-Pope is another good player, and they have some great veterans coming off their bench.
Why do you think that's been happening? Why do you think they've been going 9-1 since? What is the Josh Smith move?
The Josh Smith move, the team's taking less shots. They're taking better shots. They're not so crammed in the front court. Monroe doesn't have to come off the bench now. Their field goal percentage has skyrocketed. The team could play better defense. The team is just overall good. Their confidence is back up. I mean, they were last in the league a couple weeks ago. They were worse than the Knicks and 76ers. And then they pick it up and go 9-1. They're, I think, a couple games back from the 8th spot, and they keep rolling. Golden State's 30-5 right now. One of 18 teams in league history to win 30 of your first 35 games. Out of those 18 teams, 10 teams have made the finals, and all 10 have won. So Is that looking good for the Golden State Warriors? I don't know. DeMar DeRozan's back tonight after missing, I believe it was 21 games with a groin injury. That should help the Raptors big time because they've been slacking lately. I think they lost 5 straight now or something like that, 4 of the last 6. Mo Williams drops 52 last night. First 50-point game of the season. Speaking of first, Al Horford with his first triple-double against the 76ers in a blowout win. So that's only getting better for the Hawks. Thursday marks the first London game of the year. Milwaukee Bucks versus New York Knicks. Not the best game. I mean, the Bucks are decent this year, but the Knicks are just basketball disgrace. And interesting stat that Celtics have 9 trades since draft day, just including the Jeff Green trade, which we might talk about later in the show. But Celtics are looking to get some young talent, and
they just got Nate Robinson.
Got Nate Robinson from the
Nuggets.
From the Nuggets, they traded who was it?
Jameer. Was it Jameer Nelson?
Yeah, Jameer Nelson. Yep. So they're getting, but they're actually thinking about buying out his contract. So they're looking to clear cap space, get some big draft picks coming in. They're in total rebuilding mode right now, and it's funny. There's another interesting that'll wrap me up here. Out of their starting roster this year, like only 5 guys still remain. So most teams, I mean, it's almost basically 15 guys. But going to the West, I could ask you guys this after, but. Personally, I think the Portland Trailblazers are going to win the West. I mean, they've been balling this year, unless somebody gets hurt, which I don't expect. They've been playing very well as of right now, and their starting center, Robin Lopez, their defensive anchor, has been out. I mean, give Chris Kaman credit; he's been coming in and playing big minutes. But if for some reason the Blazers don't win, I would give a close second to the Memphis Grizzlies, who I've liked all year. I think Marc Gasol should be an MVP candidate. They got Zebo coming back off that injury, and the big signing big trade with Jeff Green, who's very, very much going to help that team. Their starting small forward was Tony Allen, who averaged 6 points a game. So Jeff Green is definitely an upgrade there. But Golden State, as I mentioned, 35, they're going to be up there too. But Holden, I'll start with you. Who do you think wins the West this year?
I definitely think that the San Antonio Spurs do not win the West. Even though they were a preseason favorite, they have had a lot of injury concerns, and Father Time is catching up with the likes of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. And Kawhi Leonard might be moved during the season because he wants the max deal, and the Spurs don't want to give him that kind of deal. But knowing the Spurs, they'll negotiate. They have to keep Kawhi Leonard at all costs. But I definitely agree with you, Justin. I think the Memphis Grizzlies win the title this year. They are seasoned in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs numerous times and had tremendous success. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. Yes, they got swept, but it was against the Spurs. The coach has had a second year to grow and develop. They finally have a decent player at all 5 positions on the floor. They got Jeff Green, who I think is a tremendous scorer and an underrated defender. And that was really the piece they were missing, because when Rudy Gay left, they needed another guy to provide some scoring, and they got that guy in Jeff Green. And Mike Conley, a top 10 point guard, arguably top 5, very underrated. And they got 2 big boys in Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. Marc Gasol playing on a contract year. This team is hungry for a chip, and I think they're going to get it this year.
Jeremy, who do you like in the West this year?
I think a team that a lot of people are almost overlooking is OKC. It's almost crazy to think that for the past couple of years, it seems like they're always favorites going in. But with the Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and all that's been going on with them, with the injuries and both of them not being on the court all the time, I think that I'm good. And I think that's going to be a good team. That's going to be hard to mess with. And then with Reggie Jackson, it's going to be interesting to see what goes with him. But if both those guys are on, I think that's a hard team to beat. But overall, I think I'm going to go with the Warriors. Obviously, the number 1 team right now with a 30-5 record. But I really like what Steph Curry brings to the table, and obviously Klay Thompson and all the guys they have there.
That bench is deep.
Exactly.
I mean,
and then Draymond Green's been playing
You
really
had
well
starters last year coming off your bench this year. Like they have almost a starting. It's almost like Kentucky, like Livingston, Andre Iguodala, David Lee, Festus Ezeli when he's healthy.
I just got a text from my NBA insider friend, Joe Flacco, rumored to go to the Warriors, transition to an NBA season. Look out, they're going to win the title this year.
Is he clutch in the postseason?
He just wins, straight up. But yeah, I think that if I were to pick a favorite to win the West as of right now, I'd probably go with the Warriors. I mean, obviously they're the 1 seed. Pretty good place to play. It seems like they always have a full crowd. So I think that they're definitely a team to be reckoned with. But obviously we did touch on the Jeff Green to Memphis. Do you guys think this is enough to win the West? We'll start with you.
This is tough. I feel like in the West, you just need to be loaded on your bench, because in the West, it's all about scoring. They have so many scorers in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference, it's like you just need to get two good players and you're cinched to win in the Eastern Conference. But in the West, you just need a bench. You need to line up your second rotation with 3 or 4 guys who can come on the floor and contribute and score. And the Memphis Grizzlies honestly have that. They have Vince Carter coming off the bench providing some scoring. They have Zebo and Marc Gasol and Jeff Green and Mike Conley Jr. All guys can score in their starting lineup. And they got what is it, Ben Udre?
Bino
Udre. Yeah, he's an underrated player for the Memphis Grizzlies. I definitely think they have what it takes to make a deep run in the postseason. And given how the West is shaken out this year with the OKC and the Spurs looking pretty vulnerable, I definitely think Memphis, they have a shot to make it to the finals this year.
I think it's going to be Golden State. These 3 teams. It's going to be Golden State, Portland, and Memphis. As they're going to. 2 of those 3 teams will be in the Western Conference Finals, but I do think Memphis has enough to win. I mean, I've been saying it for a while since that. I always pick a team in the beginning of the season. I picked Memphis this year to win just because I saw what they were doing. This team is very good. The Jeff Green trade is a huge upgrade because you have options now. You could slide Jeff Green into the 3 spot, and then you have options. You could have Tony Allen play the 2 and have a monster. That would be the best defensive team in the league if that happens. And then with that, you have Courtney Lee coming off your bench to be that spark coming off the bench. Or if you want Tony Allen to come off your bench to be that defender off the bench, you could have Courtney Lee be that offensive spark as a starter. Not to mention they have Kosta Koufis coming off the bench to back up Gasol. As you mentioned, Vince Carter, Bino Udrith. That team is very deep. They have a good home court advantage. I mean, Warriors do too, but that place can get loud down in Memphis. They don't have any other sports teams, so
yeah,
they're all in for the Grizzlies.
They got a really good guy coming off the bench in relief at the 3 spot. Jake Peavy. I don't know if you heard of him. Came in clutch down the regular season last season.
Jake Peavy signed.
He's a little shaky in the postseason, but he comes into the clutch when they need him most.
$24 million.
I mean, apparently regular season's all that matters, though, because if Joe Flacco doesn't perform in the regular season, he doesn't deserve $20 million.
I think in the NBA, for example, the regular season is so irrelevant because
no one even plays 100%.
Well, people do because you obviously do want to get a high seed, but for example, baseball, not a lot of teams make it. Football, 100%. There's 16 games. If you lose, first 4 games in the NBA, who cares? You could still win your conference. In the NFL, if you lose your first 4 games, your season could be over. So, even college, for example, if UConn loses game 1, they can't go all the way. Forget it. So that's the thing with the NBA. That's why it does get some critics saying they don't play defense. Nobody cares until the postseason. I mean, I have League Pass. I watch all the games. There's guys getting fired up. And to be honest, some of the best games to watch are the 76ers because all those guys are trying to get – they're on 1-year contracts. They're trying to get long-term deals with other teams. So they're going to work their butts off every game. Even the young guys.
No matter how much they get blown out.
No matter how much. Versus you look at a team like the Rockets where, yeah, they're working hard, but James Harden's just out there having fun trying to score 30. And Howard, by the way, got into a fight with KG. Didn't mention it in the corner here, but Jeremy, what do you think about the Grizzlies?
I mean, the Grizzlies, obviously, it's a good team. They seem like one of the few teams that have a really good defensive group. Seems like a lot of teams focus on getting their scorers they need or whatever it is. But with Tony Allen there and obviously Zebo and then Marc Gasol, that's probably one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in the league. And then, obviously, like I said, having Costas coming off the bench, that's huge. A guy that Cleveland was targeting for a while before they were able to bring in Mozgov for the 2 first-round picks. But I do like Memphis. I think that Jeff Green was definitely a big move for them. I think Boston really needed to find a place to really get rid of him. I mean, not that he's a bad player by any means, but they're in their full rebuilding mode, and they're doing what they need to do to try to bring successful basketball back to Boston. But overall, I think that this is a good move. I think Memphis can contend. I still think there are some teams that have the edge over them, like the Golden State I mentioned. I mean, obviously San Antonio, despite what their health is, I think that they'll be resting their guys up for the postseason. And
they're gonna make the
postseason. It's hard to count them out if they're able to sneak in. Even if they get an 8 seed, you still don't want to play the Spurs in the first round, regardless of what their roster looks like.
Don't count the Mavericks out.
Yeah,
that
the Mavericks. The Rondo trade was huge. I mean, that's arguably one of the best starting 5s there.
That West is competitive.
But, it's going to be a serious team.
The Pelicans are fighting for an 8 seed.
Right.
And if
Absolutely. But that's all we have for this show. I'm Jeremy Farina.
I'm Justin Palillo.
And I'm Joe Flacco.
We'll see you guys next week.
20 million.